Hello, my name is Carrie. Welcome to my tiny little kitchen. I have been cooking since I was a child. Today we are going to make Cutout sugar cookies. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use our sifter to sift together the flour. We have 2 cups of flour that I'm going to sift in here. Next, we're going to use baking powder. And we're using 1 level teaspoon of baking powder. And we're using unsalted butter in our recipe today, so we're also going to use just 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So we'll sift all of that together. Next, we have 1/3 of a cup of butter. And we have 1/3 of a cup of shortening. I use butter flavored shortening, but you can use regular unflavored shortening if you like. We're going to beat the butter and the shortening on high for about 30 seconds. And now we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we'll continue beating these together until they are light and fluffy on high. I'm going to scrape the butter from the sides of the bowl. Everything gets mixed really well. And yes, I wash my hands several times throughout the cooking process. Now that our sugar and shortening and butter and vanilla are creamed together, we're going to add half of our flour mixture. One tablespoon of half and half. You can also do 1 tablespoon of regular milk. And we're going to add 1 egg. And we'll mix that together on low at first so the flour doesn't fly everywhere. Now on medium. Now we'll add the remaining flour. Scrape the sides of the bowl and make sure that our cookie dough is well mixed. I have some wax paper. I'm going to divide the dough in half. And wrap it up so it doesn't get dried out. I'm going to take my 2 wrapped packages of dough and put them in the refrigerator for 3 hours. Our dough for the sugar cookies has been in the refrigerator for 3 hours. So now we're ready to roll it out and cut out our cookie shapes. Today I'm going to use a star cutter to make patriotic cookies, but you can use a boot or stocking cutter, a heart cutter, or a shamrock cutter. And if you don't have different shapes of cookie cutters, you can always use the edge of a lid or a glass to cut out your dough into the shapes that you want. So today we're going to use the star cutter. I have a little rolling surface here. You can do this on a wooden board or a clean countertop or on a piece of parchment or wax paper. So I've lightly floured it. And then I'm going to also roll the rolling pin and get it lightly floured so the dough doesn't stick to it as well. And our dough is easy to handle now. I'm just going to take 1/2 of that half, and we want to roll it out to about 1/8 of an inch of thickness. Have the oven preheated to 375 degrees. And we'll cut a star shape. I've lined my cookie sheets with parchment paper. We've used that before. It's not necessary. You can have the cookie sheet without paper on it. And for this recipe, you do not need to grease the cookie sheet with butter. And we have our first star on the cookie sheet. Now I will continue to roll out the dough and cut out the cookies until I have finished with all of the dough. And I really enjoy doing this. Children especially love to be able to help decorate the cookies. Now, I'm not going to decorate all of the cookies before they bake, but on some I'm going to use red colored sugar, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on top. I'm just going to press it in a little bit. And we will bake a tray with red sugar on them. Our first tray of cookies is ready to go into the oven with the red sugar on it. They're going to go into a 375-degree oven for 7 to 8 minutes, or until the edges and bottoms are lightly browned. So we'll set our timer. The second tray I'm not doing with red sugar, I'm doing with little candy sprinkles. So I'll sprinkle those on. And they're just little crunchy colored candy balls. And it is better if you push those lightly into the dough. So we'll sprinkle those on. And when our red sugar stars come out, these stars can go into the oven to bake as well. All of our cookies have finished baking. Since I made large stars, this made about 2½ dozen cookies. These are the ones that we aren't putting frosting on, are red sugar ones. And then these little ones that are an odd shape, that's because I had leftover dough that wasn't big enough to cut out, so I just rolled it out and cut it into little pieces. My husband won't mind, they still taste good. On this big cookie rack over here, we have the cookies that we're going to put frosting on. And underneath that baking rack, I did put a layer of parchment paper so that when we frost these cookies or ice these cookies, we won't get any icing on the kitchen counter. It will make cleaning up easier. So now we're going to make the icing for the cookies. Our cookies have been cooling. This is the last tray that just came out of the oven. We have 1 cup of powdered confectioner's sugar. And this is what that looks like. We're going to sift the 1 cup of sugar. we're just making a small amount of icing, and sifting it will make it finer and will make sure that we don't have any lumps in our icing. Now you can use any flavored extract that you want. You could use vanilla, almond, rum, lemon. You could use milk, or you could use orange juice to make your icing. You also can use a liqueur if you like, and one liqueur that I like to cook with is Gran Marnier, and that is an orange flavored liqueur. And that looks perfect. I'm going to take a tiny bit and put it into a separate bowl. Just a tiny bit. So there's about a tablespoon and a half in that bowl. And I want my icing to be blue, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue color to this. Not a lot, just a tiny bit. You can use a liquid food coloring or a paste food coloring, or no food coloring at all. So now we have a bowl of blue icing and a tiny little bowl of white icing. I rinsed off my little knife so that it's clean. And the first thing that I'm going to do with some blue icing is just take a knife and spread some blue icing onto my plain cookies. So we made cookies with candy sprinkles. We made cookies with red sugar sprinkles. And then I made plain ones for putting icing on. Now this one has the blue icing on it. I'm going to take my clean knife and dip it into the white icing, and then I'm going to make little lines of white icing on my blue cookies. There you go. That's one style of frosting. And with my fork, I'm just going to, on my candy sprinkle ones, I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of icing for decoration onto those. Just makes them a little bit fancier. So I'm going to finish frosting my cookies, and I've finished frosting all of our cookies. I have 3 different types. I have frosted blue and white stars, I have red sugar stars, and I have candy sprinkle stars with a little bit of icing on top. Now I used Gran Marnier in the icing today because I'm making these cookies for adults. I would not use the Gran Marnier if I were making cookies for children. I would have used orange juice or milk. I hope you've enjoyed making these cookies with me. Thank you for watching, and remember to season everything with love.